So once you find this groove position, simply holding it as an isometric is incredibly challenging. So nice work. Hi, my name is Nick Smith. I'm a licensed physical therapist and strength and conditioning coach, and I just want to show you guys a little warm-up to get your neck, your thoracic spine, and your shoulders nice and warmed up before your lifts. And we're going to use my friend Kenny here to demonstrate a foundational position called the bear. Now, most of you guys have probably heard of bear crawls before, but most of the time they're not performed correctly. There's too much movement going on. So I want to show you guys the foundational positions of a bear to get situated to kind of get yourself warmed up and prepared for your workout. So I'm going to take Kenny here, and we're going to start off in the quadruped position. We're going to have you get onto hands and knees. So we're going to start with a little bit of a checklist, working from his head all the way down to his pelvis. So the first thing we look at for his neck is we want to make sure that his head is pushed away from the floor, making sure that his chin is nice and tucked. This is going to be the foundational point, working from his head to his pelvis, where the spine is essentially stacked on top of one another. The next checkpoint is looking for his scapulas. So we want to make sure that his scapular stabilizers, like his serratus anterior, his mid and low trap, are nice and activated. So he's going to push into the floor, pushing his shoulder blades away from each other. So you're going to push. Perfect. Now if you see here, first thing, his default is he wants to go into what I call the pissed off cat position. So he's very active here, which is great, but we want to drop down his thoracic spine. Good. A little bit more from here. Perfect. So his checklist from his head to the bottom of his shoulder blades, he's nice and dialed in. Now we're going to work down to the lumbar spine and the core. He's in a good neutral pelvis position, so you can see here, spine is nice and stacked on top of each other. And once he's here, he's ready to go. So the next thing I'm going to have Kenny do is he's going to come up onto his toes. Very gently, you're going to push into your hands and toes, and you're going to slightly hover your knees off the floor about an inch. Perfect. So once you get here, we kind of have to recheck things again. So in this case, Kenny's doing a good job of correcting himself. Push a little bit more right through there. Beautiful. So Kenny's working pretty hard right now to hold himself up. And we haven't even gotten to the bear crawl position yet. And he's working pretty good. A little bit more here. Beautiful. So once you find this groove position, simply holding it as an isometric is incredibly challenging. So nice work. So I encourage all of you, when you learn this, just to kind of work by trying to hold for, maybe start with like 5 seconds, work up to 15, 30 before you start getting into the other movements. So once you kind of mastered the isometrics, you feel like you can hold it for a sustainable amount of time, this next option is just another addition to kind of ramp up your game a little bit and put a little bit more emphasis through the shoulders. So if it's a press day, or if you're doing anything with your upper body, if you're a jiu-jitsu guy, it's a really good way to warm up your shoulders and your neck. So essentially what Kenny's going to do, he's going to get back into the bear position. So he's going to do his checklist, neck, shoulder blades, good, and then go ahead and press into the air. Beautiful. Now his next position, what he's going to do is he's going to arch by pressing like in an arcing motion, and his hips are actually going to come back this way, pushing his body away and then coming back down. What this really emphasizes is his shoulder blade muscles here. Go ahead and recheck there. Good. Very nice. Now, what you may tend to see right off the bat is if you're feeling this too much in your upper traps, you're probably using your traps to kind of shrug to stabilize. And what Kenny really wants to focus on is kind of moving his shoulder blades up this way as he pushes his body away. So go ahead and check here, and then push yourself away. Beautiful. And he should be feeling a nice little pump through here, maybe through his rib cage a little bit, really emphasizing the serratus. So if you're on a press day, this is super, super important to add to your routine. If you're a jiu-jitsu guy, you're constantly stabilizing in this position, and plus it makes the bear a little bit more spicy. So if those two movements aren't spicy enough for you, or you've just mastered them because you're so good at it, This one is an awesome one that I love to do for my jiu-jitsu athletes. So we call this bear to bow and arrow. So essentially, same setup. Okay, good, neck, shoulder blade, lumbar, up on the toes, pop up. Now, once he's in the position, what he's gonna do is he's gonna lift this hand, pivot on his same foot, and this leg is gonna sit through me. That top arm pulls back like he's pulling a bow and arrow, and then he can go back to the starting position. So what this emphasizes a little bit more, before bilateral, both shoulders are working. This one is definitely coordinating between being able to stabilize on one arm, and at the same time, you have to coordinate that energy between the core and the hips. So you have to be a little bit more fancy with this. So go ahead and try it one more time towards me. Beautiful. So right there, he's got to stabilize through that shoulder. His core on that side is working. He's rotated his hip. If you can see, he's got nice little vibrations going through the shirt. Go ahead and switch back. And then go ahead and switch to the other side. Beautifully done. And the more he feels more controlled with this, it's not a speed thing. You actually want to go for control. So when I'm teaching this to somebody, you can go and rest. I don't want to necessarily give them a ton of repetitions. I mean, you know, a lot of people will ask, hey, you know, Nick, how many reps should I do? And that will kind of depend. Some days you may only need to do, you know, 2 or 3 reps to each side for that set before you need to take a rest, because we're looking here more for quality. I don't necessarily care about can you do it poorly for an excessive amount of time, but can you do it really well for a long amount of time? So if there's 3 different levels to this, there's a lot of different variations, but this should definitely get you going and be able to get your warm up nice and dialed in for your neck and your shoulders.